Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. The topic today is key steps to ensuring a successful Office 365 migration and adoption. I will be introducing our guest speaker today. I am Ned Bellavance. I am the Director of Cloud Solutions at AnnexNet. And speaking of AnnexNet, just a little background on AnnexNet and what we do before the main presentation. We've got 4 key pillars that we use to create a complete digital experience for our clients and their end users. The most important of those, well, actually not most important, the one that we like to focus on first is customer engagement. How are you engaging with your clients and customers to give them a great experience, regardless of whatever platform they're on? Which leads into our enterprise mobility sphere. We have a whole separate practice dedicated to streamlining and making the enterprise experience for internal users excellent, to help them get their business done faster and be more productive. We have a group that focuses on analytics and insight. So taking the information that they get from customer engagement scenarios and enterprise mobility and other outside sources of structured and unstructured data, and creating business insights that help you find opportunities to grow and thrive. And then finally, all of these solutions require some sort of back-end infrastructure, whether that infrastructure exists within the cloud or on premises. So we help design, deploy, implement, and run cloud and hybrid IT solutions. Our presenter today is the esteemed Mr. Matt Dieroff. He is an AnnexNet enterprise architect and also a Microsoft partner seller. But without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Matt Dieroff. Matt, take it away.
Great. Thanks for the great introduction, Ned. I appreciate that. My name is Matt Dieroff. I apologize in advance for the extremely large picture on the screen. So my background is focused in infrastructure. I've been in infrastructure for about 20 years now. I've been with AnnexNet. It will be 3 years in about a week. So working primarily in our cloud and hybrid IT practice, now as an architect, focused on cloud, Microsoft technologies in particular. So being a partner seller, as part of that, we're considered trusted advisors, able to communicate, architect, and help you with all the Microsoft solutions you're looking to implement. So where does Office 365 fit in today? We're really seeing the landscape of IT change a lot, from that traditional infrastructure where most of us infrastructure guys like to be, single devices, very managed, high touch. We're really seeing that move more towards what we call modern IT today, which is really what we're getting from our users. So, everyone wants to be connected all the time, anywhere, from any device they want. They want to be able to get their own devices, use cloud apps, whatever is most efficient and easiest for them, which really presents a lot of challenges for us. So how do we use Office 365 to modernize at a pace that works for everyone? That's one of our big challenges today. And how do we integrate that traditional IT with the modern IT that our users are looking for? So today, we're trying to address the needs of our users. That landscape is really complicated. Users, our customers, really want to use solutions that work for them. They want it immediately. And if IT can't provide it today, they have ways to go around IT and do whatever they want, put a credit card in Microsoft Azure, use cloud services, use something besides Dropbox, Box, any kind of those applications for file sharing. So we really see our infrastructure become fragmented. Users always take that path of least resistance. If IT is a roadblock, we are enabled to go around IT in a lot of instances. So that really presents a lot of challenges. Any device, anywhere, presents security concerns. So if we have our users just going out using whatever application they want to use, how do we manage that? How do we secure that? Really present a lot of challenges today. And then moving to Office 365, how do we take all of these disparate applications and methods that our users are using today and really get them to adopt and migrate to the Office 365 technology we want them to use? So at the same time, our users are doing this. What does it look like for you, for the IT organization as a whole? So it really creates a lot of challenges. Of course, we have budgetary constraints. How do we provide solutions that are within the budget that meet our user needs? It's always a large challenge. The complex user demands we talked about, the anywhere access from any device, anytime. How do we manage that? How do we, not that we want to be Big Brother, but how do we keep some sort of control and standardization across the board so that we can support and enable our users? And it really becomes difficult to manage all of the different solutions when users are just going out and doing whatever they want to do to get their job done, but outside of IT. So it really becomes complex to manage that. And how do we get the management from all of those to Office 365 and do that successfully? So from our experience, there really are some top areas to consider when looking to implement Office 365. I assume at this point, you've likely evaluated Office 365, are partially on your route to using Office 365, or are currently using Office 365 today, or at least some components of it. So, really some key areas we find to be successful and meet all of those challenges we talked about previously. Planning and preparation really have to lay the groundwork, set expectations for what we're going to roll out. So, for example, in Lotus Notes to Exchange Online migration presents a unique challenge. So we need to plan for that. Typically, Lotus Notes isn't very accessible web-wise, anywhere access. People have to VPN. There's still a lot of control in place. When migrating to Exchange Online, you then get Outlook web access. People can access email from anywhere. There's a lot of features that are in Office 365 that aren't in Notes that have to be accounted for. And do you care about that? Do you care if your users access their email from their home computer? You may not. You may. Depends on compliance, regulations. And really that planning and preparation phase encompasses, the remaining bullets here. So that would really take you into your remediation. So what I mean by remediation is my infrastructure and my users prepared? Do I have what I need in place to be able to support the Office 365 features I want to roll out and I want to use? So really an important factor. It can really make changes to your timeline, increase or decrease greatly depending on what those remediation tests look like. And we'll expand on that some more. Next, we really see proof of concept validate the functionality and process we're looking for here. So integral to Office 365 implementation or migration is a proof of concept. So here we get to validate a lot of things. Does our process work? What is the experience for our users? Is it what we expect it to be? Do we need to adjust any of those components along the way? So proof of concept is really a key component. And then security and compliance. Do you have compliance regulations, HIPAA, GDPR, other legal requirements? Do you need to have legal holds, a lot of considerations to take place when looking to implement these Office 365 technologies, since the files and people have access from a lot of different ways they didn't before. And then finally, training and adoption. I mean, I probably should have highlighted or bolded that bullet point because perception is reality. So if your users don't perceive that you're rolling out Office 365, that's going to benefit them, what are the enhancements they're going to see? Is it going to make their job easier? All of those pieces are part of training and adoption. And that really gets into what types of training. What are the best ways to help my users understand what we're doing and why we're doing it? Along the lines of help desk support as well. So are we going to be able to provide the right level of support for our users as they adopt this new technology? So we're going to elaborate a little bit on the planning, preparation, and remediation components, and really preparing our foundation for Office 365. So like I was saying, the planning, preparation, and remediation are really the groundwork for creating a successful Office 365 implementation or migration. There's a lot of considerations to take here, particularly in the planning phase. Things that you may not have considered today that need to be considered moving forward. If we're going to allow our users mobile devices, how do we manage them? How do we manage them today? How do we want to manage them going forward? Are there perhaps better ways? Is that included in my Office 365 licensing already? Is that somehow a cost savings that I can, sell as part of my planning phase? And that also leads you into your preparation. As part of that are business expectations. Being aligned with the business is probably one of the most important things in the planning phase, as are we presenting or are we providing the services that the business expects to get? Are they going to be happy in the end? We really need to make sure we're aligned with the business and the business folks to achieve that. Another key component, a lot of times we're talking through the planning, and Microsoft and Office 365 does a good job of selling, you don't have to worry about your infrastructure anymore. And for the most part, that's true. But do you need to consider backups? Just because you're moving your mail to Exchange Online doesn't mean you don't need legal retention. Do you have a way to keep those point in time? Do you need to keep those point in time? How do you back up SharePoint Online? You need to keep those documents. Say we want to use OneDrive. What if I need to restore one of my users' laptops? How do I back up my OneDrive data? So that planning really takes a step back, overlooks what products we want to implement as part of your rollout, what considerations around those products need to be taken, and then lays out your timeline for the remaining components. And that leads you into your preparation. So, removing any blockers that may be in place, determining what kind of deployment or migration you might want to have. So there's a lot of options around if we're migrating. Say I'm taking my SharePoint on-premise and migrating that to Office 365. Do I want to take? How much data do I want to take? Is there a timeline? Do I want to start point in time and everything new into Office 365? So all of those things really affect your timeline as to your migration. And then finally, remediation. So when we talk about remediation, really we're talking about a lot more of the technical items. There's a lot of considerations to take place around existing environment to make sure that everything we're planning and preparing to do will be supported by our existing infrastructure and technology today. So, things like, do my client software versions support Office 365? Is my domain level where it's supposed to be? Do I need to have a hybrid environment? How do I set that up? What are the requirements for having a hybrid environment? Are my UPN names match my primary SMT address? So a lot of different considerations and things that may need to be remediated depending on what we plan on rolling out. And that really leads us into proof of concept. So once we have that initial step done, we really look for a proof of concept. So that proof of concept really allows us to validate our process and procedures and also validate scenarios that we're looking to prove out. So as part of that planning, we selected, Skype for Business. Does that meet the needs of our business users? We validate that the functionality in Skype meets our requirements as part of that POC. So that's really important from a business perspective, and allows you to validate, that what you're planning on doing will actually solve problems. In addition to that, we find it's really important to have champions. So there's no better way to sell your project than to have advocates in the business that love what you're doing. So sell that internally to their coworkers. They will act as sponsors for you. Even lean on them for some training and examples. So how do I use this new technology? Why is it going to benefit me? Say, we all collaborate on an Excel document. Today, someone has to save it, download it, then they upload it somewhere, let everyone know it's been updated. Office 365 allows you to all collaborate on that same document together. Auto saving in real time, seeing people's changes in real time. So can really provide efficiencies that may not have been seen before. And how, as you as IT, going to communicate that to your users is much better seen from one of their peers or one of their coworkers, seeing how they can use it to do their job more efficiently. So we find that to be a huge benefit in having your stakeholders and advocates that will really evangelize what you're trying to do with Office 365 to your coworkers. In addition to that, you really get some great lessons learned out of a proof of concept. So generally those core stakeholders that you roll your proof of concept out are those champions. So they're willing to give you honest feedback and really tell you what their experience is like and allow you to refine the process you have. So make it even better for the users that are going to be impacted down the road, and allow you to understand what some of those impacts may be that maybe you missed without doing a proof of concept. And then it also allows you to enhance your communications. For example, you can use the Lotus Notes example again. Say we're moving from Lotus Notes to Exchange Online. We really see a huge change there, right? The whole email client is changing. The way calendaring is done, the way email is done. So in that instance, we would really need to communicate something different than if we were moving from an Exchange on-premise environment to Exchange Online, where your customers are already used to using that Outlook client. So I've combined the two words. So security and compliance may not be what you would expect to see in an Office 365 discussion, but recently we found, as we talk about Office 365 with a lot of our customers, security and compliance is top of mind. And if it's not top of mind immediately without us mentioning it, as we start the process of the migration, we really see it mentioned. And there's a lot of great features within Office 365 that make security a lot easier to implement today. So if it's not a requirement today for a lot of customers, we're seeing it as maybe a wish list item or something they'd want to implement down the road. So like I said, everyone's becoming more security aware, and that really is due to just about everything we see in the news. People's records being compromised, some really scary statistics on this slide. 99 days between infiltration and detection. So that's basically 3 months of time where someone could have access to your corporate network. I'm sure within that time they'd be able to copy and retract whatever information they want before most customers are even aware that they've been breached. So that's not even including response times to remediate the infiltration. That's just, in there clicking away. That and the use of cyber attacks really in our SMB market, we see a lot. The clickbait type of things. How do we prevent, our CFO from getting a spoofed email that he potentially thinks is real? How do we educate him about what that looks like and why he should be aware of that? So the security landscape is really changing. The threats are becoming much more sophisticated, and Office 365 really allows us a way to address a lot of those concerns that are probably included in the Office 365 licensing you're looking at. So, as we dive into these things, we're talking about access anywhere. So again, our users have access to our information pretty much anywhere. When we move to Office 365 cloud service, do we need to control that? What about conditional access? So conditional access is a great feature that will only allow access on certain devices and really allows IT to have a little bit more visibility and control around that anywhere access. As we talk about anywhere access, maybe we need multi-factor authentication. Maybe we want to ensure that people need more than just a username and password to log in somewhere. So, my post-it note at home, my daughter doesn't log into my work account. Maybe there's a secondary authentication method to ensure that it's your users logging in when they're supposed to be logging in. And I know we mentioned mobile device management earlier, but again, that really becomes part of security concerns. So how do you manage mobile devices today? Do we use Intune? Do we look at Intune to help control some of those mobile device features? If we don't provide corporate devices, if we allow BYOD, how do I enroll? How do I set that up for my users, make it seamless? So a lot of those security, the privacy and control concerns, along with compliance. So there's a lot of questions around compliance. GDPR is really an unknown for global companies. We talk about GDPR a lot around compliance, and Microsoft has a great trust center where you can go read all of that information, but that doesn't mean, on your side, you still don't need to be aware of what you need to do from a compliance and perspective. And then we come to our training and adoption. So like I mentioned earlier, training and adoption is really one of our key areas that we find in making a successful Office 365 migration project. A lot of the technical details can be worked out behind the scenes, fixed or remediated without anyone knowing. But really, in the end, you're rolling these great things out to your users. You want them to be able to take advantage of them and actually start using them. So adoption is really difficult. We find that most employees aren't willing to change the way they do things. So they like the way they do it today. It works for them. They understand it, and that's how they're just going to do it. So how do we change that perspective? We really need to train them properly, show them use case scenarios that are going to show them how the technology today is going to replace what they're doing today and make it even better for them. So really some major challenges around adoption. The perception is a lot that the new way is difficult. It takes a long time. How do we, get our users to see that the technology we're providing them will enhance their jobs. So we find communication and awareness is really a great way to do this. So when we do full projects, from the planning, preparation, remediation, to the implementation and migration, and even post migration, we like to communicate to our users what is happening. So we find that if they're aware, they become more invested. They want to understand, what is this great thing you're talking about? When are we going to get it? How am I going to be able to use it? So we really try to over communicate, from pre-launch before we even start. Anything to do with rollout, say, our company has invested in Office 365, really looking to enable our workforce and start to communicate the benefits of what we're trying to do, and then continue that communication along all your steps of your project. So keep the users aware where you are in the project, when it's going to affect them, and how it's going to affect them. So we find that to be a key in getting users invested and really looking to begin that. And we find different ways of communications really work, not just email blasts, because we know, I've been in IT support, so I've seen the rules where, your users send your IT notifications directly to a folder or a junk mail and don't ever check them. So, different types of communication, whether that's on the intranet site, office flyers, those types of things, something hanging in the lunchroom, really to provide those different types of communications for people that may access that information differently. And then something that's been fairly new has been engagement events. So things like demo days, a half day, come see what Office 365 can do, have a number of devices at a kiosk where, your users can come and test them out, play with them, see what they do, see how things they do today in their jobs could be done differently or in a different way. And you really provide some education and excitement around that. So you can work with your IT champions to do that, and really start to get your users excited about that. So the second part of that is the training. So not only do we want to communicate thoroughly and get our users excited about what's happening, we need to train them and train them properly. That doesn't mean just, an email saying, this is how you do this. How-tos we find are helpful in some instances, but really don't reach the extent that we want it to and really help our users adopt the technology. So we really want to show the benefits of the change, take use cases in real work scenarios, take what they're doing today and how they're doing it, and show them how they would do it with Office 365 or with the new technology that you're deploying. We also find that mixed formats, mixed media is also a great way to do it. So email still works great, your help sites on your intranet or your knowledge sharing places. But we also find things like learning management systems and short videos. Maybe it's your company YouTube channel where you have a couple, 30-second videos where someone can go click, watch something real quick, and learn something new about how the new technology they're going to use, and really continue to reinforce that with them. So moving from that, Anexanet has a lot of experience in every phase that we've talked about here today. So whether you're just thinking about a cloud deployment, whether you've already started that deployment, or whether you're just have it implemented and you're concerned about your security today, we can certainly help you in all those areas. So from the planning phase, to the implementation, to the actual migration, and then post. And specific to that, we offer what we call Office 365 Kickstart. So that really presents you with the foundation to look at your Office 365 deployment. As part of that, we provide a readiness assessment, interview business and IT key stakeholders, get that feedback of what we're looking for, identify the products that would give you the most value today and how to implement them, along with, is your infrastructure ready? What would I need to do infrastructure-wise to prepare for Office 365? And talk about the training and the security and the compliance components. Out of that assessment, we would build a roadmap for rollout. So that would really take all those assessment details, take what you're looking to do, whether that be a SharePoint migration, an Exchange hybrid environment, roll out Microsoft Teams, really take specific to what you're looking to do out of that assessment, create a project plan out of that, put real timelines to that, working with your staff and the Nexanet experts that have a lot of experience and can give you real world scenarios about the timelines they're seeing in those migration and deployment, and line up the training and communication around that. And then finally, provide you with a proof of concept. So we really find it's great to have hands-on, get to test out the new features we're talking about, make sure they meet your needs. So this proof of concept would be a trial tenant with test users and sample data with the features that we identified earlier enabled for you to walk through scenarios and test out at your own pace with your own staff.
Thank you, Matt, for that presentation and all the information about Office 365. At this time, we'd like to open up for questions. So if you have any questions, you can type them into the chat box. Let's see if we have any in there already. All right, looks like we got one so far. So the question is, I already have a bunch of different workloads I'd like to move to the cloud. Is there one that you would recommend moving first?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a question we receive fairly often. Is there a proper order to migrate workloads? It really depends on the scenario and your environment. We really try to look at what will give your business the most value initially. There are definitely some key areas to start. I wouldn't say just jump into a SharePoint migration, but we could definitely help in trying to determine what the right order is for your business.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matt. The next question is about the Kickstart. How long does the Office 365 Kickstart take?
So today, we're estimating about 2 weeks for the Office 365 Kickstart. So, initially, the assessment, we need to do some discovery and assessing, the interviews with your team and the business stakeholders, move into that roadmap discussion, and then stand up the POC as determined. So, yeah, approximately 2 weeks.
Okay, great. Let's see. Next question is, what sort of skills would we need in-house to support a migration?
That's a great question. So it really depends on where you are today. What we see a lot of times is through that preparation migration phases, utilize experienced partner like an Nexanet to help through that. As part of that, there's a lot of knowledge share that happens, enabling your staff to get up to speed on how they would administer and manage the new environment. And then generally it's a handoff and your existing team can continue to manage. But when we talk about migration, there are also other considerations with that. If we're migrating large amount of data, large amount of users, there's help desk support to consider. So maybe we need to supplement that. So again, as part of that evaluation, it's really dependent on your use case and scenario, but we could help with that as well.
Okay, and I think we got time for one more question. Well, I like this one. What is Office 365 going to do to my network?
That's always a fun question. So short answer is generally not a whole lot. Really depends on the network. So we've had some scenarios where, we used MPLS, backhauled all of our traffic through one pipe to a main office and out their network. So in that type of scenario, it can definitely present a challenge. Office 365 is not designed that way. It's designed basically to go right to the internet is the concept. So even in remote sites, branch sites, allow direct internet access. So we would really want to see how the network's set up, evaluate that if that's ideal for Office 365, and then present some options around remediating that if necessary.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
So I believe that's all the time we have. Again, I want to thank everyone for dialing in and attending this morning. And everybody enjoy the remainder of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.